So sometimes when you're a kid and you are trying to figure out, why am I being abused? And sometimes we have kids that are like black sheep, like they are just not like the other people in the family. Um, they're just not the same kind of family culture. They don't think the same way. It's often kind of like your neurodivergent kids. Or you might be a scapegoat where you are being blamed for things that are happening in the family. You might have a golden child, scapegoat, or black sheep dynamic where one kid is seen as like the perfect kid and therefore the other kid is seen as bad. Um, I've also identified the concept of the family effigy, which is basically, it's not even that you're an outsider or reject the culture of the family. It's not even that you've done anything to be scapegoated for. Literally, it's your existence. And so you've been identified as a person to be destroyed, basically, like over and over again. So an effigy in political protest is when you create a simulacrum of, let's say, a politician, and then you like string it up and set it on fire as a focus for the rage. So if you are in the position of being the family effigy, you are the person who's the focus of the rage. And when you're in it, it doesn't necessarily make sense because you're like, I don't, I want to follow the rules, or I want to be loved, or I'm trying, and I don't understand why I'm the focus here. And I just wanted to say that sometimes these patterns get set before you're even a conscious person. So sometimes you see with in infancy, you can see these patterns start to happen. And that's why you might be looking at your sibling and like, well, why do they like my sibling and they don't like me? And so, we're aware that some emotionally unintelligent parents may mistreat a child who is not the gender that they wanted, or they might mistreat a child if it doesn't look like them, or if the child resembles like a family member they hate, they might pour that anger out on the child because they hate that family member so much. You can get kind of like weird permutations like that, but you can also end up with situations where you have one child was like an easy baby and one child was not an easy baby, like a hard baby. And so the caregiver starts to resent the not easy baby. Some children, particularly neurodivergent children, really struggle with sleeping and stomach issues. And so when you have that combination, you often end up with a colicky baby who doesn't sleep and cries a lot. And so even though it's not the baby's fault, literally not the baby's fault at all, it can be so frustrating for the adult, especially if they're emotionally unintelligent, especially if they don't have any information on child development, especially if they don't have any support, that they can start to, well, and also they're sleep deprived, they can start to hate that baby, to resent the baby. I mentioned in the other video that the number one predictor of maternal abuse is something called hostile attribution bias, and the research, it was done on mothers with infants. So we're not even talking like children, we're talking like infants, babies, where they were assuming their babies were like being manipulative, or they were assuming things to the child that didn't make sense. And so if you are that person in that situation, in the family situation, where you're looking around and you're like, I don't understand, I'm not outside the family culture like a black sheep. I'm not trying to be different, or, I haven't done anything wrong, or like I'm not being scapegoated for reasons. They just hate me. And it literally could just be that you were not an easy baby, and that set a pattern. Because once people give themselves permission to mistreat you, that tends to be then reinforced. And so they're looking for any behavior on your part that they can use to justify the mistreatment. And so if this is happening in babyhood, in infancy, you are not going to have any idea what's happening other than you've never been loved. Anyway, I kind of hope this doesn't make sense. It does not resonate with you. But I'll talk to you next time.